Right now, somewhere in America, a 67-year-old man is rubbing his right shoulder for the 11th time today. He's been to a chiropractor twice this month. He's tried 2 physical therapists. He's bought 3 different shoulder braces from the pharmacy aisle. He has a heating pad on his nightstand and a tube of muscle rub in his bathroom drawer. And in 6 months, maybe sooner, he is going to be wheeled into an emergency room at 3 in the morning, doubled over in pain with an inflamed gallbladder that has been screaming for help the entire time. Through his shoulder. You know this man. Maybe he's your husband. Maybe he's your father. Maybe. And I want you to be honest with yourself for the next 90 seconds. Maybe he is you. The dull ache in the right shoulder blade that you've been blaming on your pillow. The tightness between your shoulder blades that gets noticeably worse after a heavy dinner. The throbbing in the right side of your neck that no amount of stretching will release. The pain that a massage helps for 1 day, sometimes 2, and then comes right back. You've been told it's tension. You've been told it's posture. You've been told it's just what happens when you turn 60. None of that is the answer. The answer lives in your belly, 2 inches below your right rib cage, in an organ no bigger than a pear that almost no one bothers to think about until it nearly takes their life. Subscribe and hit like. We are pushing toward 100,000 subscribers, and the more people who hear what is in this video, the fewer of them end up in an ambulance. The medical system is built to manage symptoms, not find their cause. That is economics, not malice. Now let's get to the cause. Here is what you have been told, and here is why it is wrong. You have been told that pain in your right shoulder blade, or between the shoulder blades on the right side is musculoskeletal. That word means muscles, tendons, joints, and nerves of the upper back. So you have been treated for muscles, tendons, joints, and nerves. Massages, adjustments, anti-inflammatories, cortisone injections. And for some people, those treatments do help for a week, for a month. Then the pain comes back, or it changes shape, or it migrates. And nobody can quite explain why. Here is why. Research published in surgical and gastroenterology journals shows that in roughly 30 to 40% of adults over 60 with chronic right shoulder pain, the pain is not actually coming from the shoulder. It is coming from an organ 14 inches away on the other side of the diaphragm, sending its distress signal up a wire that your brain has been misreading since the day you were born. Let me explain what referred pain actually is, because if you understand this one mechanism, you will never look at body pain the same way again. Inside your nervous system, there is a concept called a dermatome. A dermatome is a strip of skin served by a single spinal nerve root. Your body is mapped out in dermatomes from your scalp down to your toes, like time zones on a globe. Nadzizas archi RNGs. The skin of your right shoulder, the top of your right shoulder blade, and the right side of your neck are all served by a cluster of nerves called the C3, C4, and C5 nerve roots. They exit the spine high up in the neck. Now here's the part that nobody bothered to explain at your last appointment. There is one organ in your abdomen, and only one, that is also served by those same C3, C4, and C5 nerves. That organ is the diaphragm, the dome-shaped muscle that separates your chest from your belly. The long nerve that runs from your neck down to your diaphragm is called the phrenic nerve. And sitting directly underneath the right side of your diaphragm, almost pressed against its lower surface, is your gallbladder. Picture this. When you were a 4-week-old embryo, the size of a sesame seed, your gallbladder and the skin of your right shoulder were neighbors. They sat right next to each other in the same neurological zip code. Then your body grew. Your organs migrated to where they belong. Your shoulder drifted outward. Your gallbladder slid down underneath your liver. But the nervous system wiring, nobody rerouted it. 40, 50, 60, 70 years later, that original embryonic wiring is still in place. So, when your inflamed gallbladder sends a distress signal up the phrenic nerve, the message arrives in your brain, wrapped in an envelope with a return address that reads shoulder. Your brain isn't lying to you. Your brain is reading the envelope. Your gallbladder is the one with the wrong return address. Before we go any further, I need to give you the warning signs that mean you stop this video and go to an emergency room. Not tomorrow, not next week. Tonight. If you have right shoulder pain combined with sudden severe pain in the upper right belly that comes in waves and lasts more than 4 hours, that may be an acute gallbladder attack, and it can be life-threatening. Go. If you have right shoulder pain plus any yellowing of the skin or the whites of your eyes, even a faint yellow tinge that was not there last week, go. That suggests bile is backing up into your bloodstream and the duct may be obstructed. If you have right shoulder pain plus fever, chills, and dark urine, go. That combination points toward an infection of the gallbladder or bile duct, and it can progress quickly. If you have right shoulder pain plus pale, clay-colored stools, that is the absence of bile reaching your intestine, and it needs evaluation this week, not in 2 months. Nothing in this video replaces medical care for an acute attack. What we are talking about today is the chronic, low-grade, decades-long version of this problem, the version that gets dismissed for years before it finally erupts. Now, gallbladder pain is not one thing. It comes in 3 distinct patterns, and each one refers to the shoulder slightly differently. If you can identify which pattern matches you, you are already ahead of most patients walking into a clinic. Pattern 1 is gallstones. The medical term is cholelithiasis, hard mineral deposits that form inside the gallbladder, sometimes the size of a grain of sand, sometimes the size of a marble. Pain pattern, sharp, episodic, often hitting 1 to 3 hours after a fatty or fried meal. Right shoulder ache that comes and goes. Pattern 2 is biliary sludge, or what's called biliary dyskinesia. The gallbladder is not contracting properly. Bile sits, thickens, and the gallbladder muscle wall becomes irritated. Pain pattern, dull, chronic, achy, often worse at night when you lie down. Many people describe it as a permanent knot under the right shoulder blade that nothing seems to release. Pattern 3 is inflammation of the gallbladder itself, called cholecystitis. The wall is swollen, irritated, sometimes infected. Pain pattern, constant, gradually worsening, often with low-grade fever. This is the pattern that lands people in emergency rooms. Now, let me tell you about someone I'll call Russell, 71 years old, lifelong tennis player. Proud of his health, prides himself on never needing pills. He came into the picture with right shoulder pain that had been steadily getting worse for 18 months. He had done everything by the book, an MRI of the shoulder. It showed minor rotator cuff thinning, described in the report as consistent with age. 3 months of physical therapy, 1 cortisone shot, which gave him 6 glorious weeks of relief, and then the pain came back worse than before. A second opinion from a sports medicine physician, adjustments from a chiropractor that helped for 48 hours at a time. He was tired, frustrated, and starting to wonder if this was just his life now. Then one afternoon, he made a passing comment, almost a throwaway remark. He said, "The weird thing is, my shoulder is way worse after Italian dinners, after a ribeye, after ice cream, but never after I eat a salad. Why would my shoulder care what I eat?" That was the question that finally cracked the case open. An abdominal ultrasound was ordered. The result, multiple gallstones. The gallbladder wall thickened, indicating chronic low-grade inflammation that had been smoldering for years. Here is what had been happening inside Russell's body for 18 months. Every time he ate a meal high in fat, his gallbladder contracted. That is exactly what it is built to do. Squeeze out concentrated bile to break down dietary fat. But Russell's gallbladder was packed with stones. Each contraction pressed those stones against an already inflamed wall. The wall sent a pain signal up the phrenic nerve. The phrenic nerve carried that signal up to the C3, C5 nerve roots in his neck. And his brain, which has been reading those nerve roots as right shoulder territory since the day Russell was born, dutifully reported right shoulder pain. Russell had been treating his shoulder for 18 months while stones were grinding against the inside of his gallbladder after every meal that contained more than a teaspoon of fat. You can check yourself for this pattern right now in your living room with no equipment. Test 1, the breath catch test. Lie flat on your back, find your right rib cage. Place 3 fingers in the soft area just below the lowest rib, about halfway between the bottom of the rib cage and your belly button. Press gently inward and slightly upward toward your right shoulder. Now take a slow, deep breath in through your nose. If at any point during that inhale you feel a sharp catch, like the breath suddenly gets stuck and you have to stop, that is a clinical sign that your gallbladder is inflamed enough to make contact with your fingertips when your diaphragm pushes it down. In medical literature, this is called a positive Murphy's sign, and it is one of the most established physical exam findings for gallbladder inflammation. Healthy gallbladder, no catch. Inflamed gallbladder, sudden catch. Test 2, the food pain diary. For 7 days, write down every single thing you eat with the time. And every single time your right shoulder blade, or upper right back hurts, write that down too with the time. After 7 days, lay it side by side. If your shoulder pain consistently appears 1 to 3 hours after fatty meals, fried food, eggs, butter, cream, cheese, fatty cuts of meat, and is conspicuously absent after light meals, that is not coincidence. That is a biliary pain pattern, and it deserves an abdominal ultrasound. Now, what makes this worse? There are 3 things that aggressively drive gallbladder dysfunction, and I see them in nearly every case. First, deep fried foods. Frying loads a meal with the kind of oxidized fat your gallbladder has to dump enormous amounts of bile to handle. A diseased gallbladder cannot keep up. Each fried meal becomes a contraction crisis. Second, refined carbohydrates and sugar in the evening. Most people don't realize this. Excess refined carbs raise blood insulin, which signals the liver to produce more cholesterol. Excess cholesterol in bile is the raw material from which gallstones form. The cake at 9 in the evening is a stone-building project running while you sleep. Third, crash dieting and skipping meals. This one is counterintuitive. When you skip meals or aggressively restrict food, your gallbladder doesn't contract. Bile sits inside it for hours, sometimes days, becoming progressively thicker. Sludge forms. Then the next meal you eat triggers a violent contraction against thickened bile, and the pain begins. 3 meals a day with healthy fat distributed across them is far gentler on the gallbladder than 2 huge meals with a long gap. Now what helps? 3 foods to add starting tonight. First, beets. Cooked, raw, juiced, however you like them. Beets contain a compound called betaine that thins bile and supports the liver's bile-making machinery. Half a cup of cooked beets a day. Second, bitter greens, dandelion, arugula, radicchio, endive. The bitter taste itself triggers bile flow through a reflex called the cephalic phase response. A small bitter salad before your main meal primes the gallbladder to contract gently and steadily, instead of being shocked into a violent contraction by the fat that follows. Third, apples and pears. They contain pectin, a soluble fiber that binds to cholesterol in bile and carries it out, reducing the raw material available for stone formation. 1 apple or pear a day, with the skin on. Now, the protocol. 5 sequential pieces, morning to bedtime. Morning. Before food, drink 1 cup of warm water with 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and the juice of half a lemon. This gently stimulates bile flow that has thickened overnight. Then, 5 minutes of right side stretching, slow side bends, gentle reaching across the body to mobilize the right upper quadrant. Daytime. Switch from 2 large meals to 3 or 4 smaller ones, evenly spaced. This prevents the long gap that causes bile stagnation. Distribute your dietary fat across all meals instead of loading it into one. Before lunch, drink 1 cup of dandelion root tea, 2 tablespoons of dried dandelion root steeped in boiling water for 15 minutes. Bitter, accessible, and one of the most studied bile flow stimulants in herbal medicine. Evening, light dinner, no fried food, no heavy cream sauces, no butter-laden plates. Make this the lowest fat meal of your day. Then, and this is non-negotiable, walk for 10 to 15 minutes after dinner. Movement after a meal supports bile flow and digestion in ways that no supplement can replicate. Before bed, lie on your left side for 10 to 15 minutes, knees gently bent. This takes mechanical pressure off the gallbladder, which sits on the right, and allows it to drain more efficiently overnight. Most people sleep on their right side or back, which compresses the area. One small position change has a real cumulative effect. Russell did exactly this. Within 3 weeks, his right shoulder pain had decreased noticeably. Within 2 months, it was gone. He still has gallstones. The protocol does not dissolve existing stones. But his attacks stopped because the inflammation calmed down and his diet stopped triggering violent contractions. Some people in Russell's situation will eventually need surgery to remove the gallbladder. Some will manage it with diet for the rest of their lives. The path forward depends on the size of the stones, the severity of the inflammation, and a conversation with whoever manages your care. But none of those decisions can be made until somebody recognizes that the shoulder is not the problem. 5 things to do tonight. 1. Run the breath catch test. Press under your right rib, breathe in, see if it catches, note what you find. 2. Start the food pain diary tomorrow morning. 7 days. Look for the fatty meal pattern. 3. Cut deep-fried foods and heavy cream completely for 14 days. Watch what happens to your shoulder. 4. Add the warm lemon water and apple cider vinegar in the morning and the after-dinner walk in the evening. 2 changes, no expense. 5. If your shoulder pain consistently follows fatty meals, request an abdominal ultrasound at your next appointment. It is non-invasive, painless, widely available, and takes 15 minutes. Ask by name. One last thing before you go. 2 things, actually. How old are you? Write your age in the comments. The age of this audience genuinely shapes which topics get covered next. If most of you are 63, the next video looks different than if most of you are 78. And tell me where you are watching from. Which city, which state, which country? Drop it in the comments. I want to see how far this conversation is reaching because it helps in understanding who needs this kind of information most. And if someone you love has had a sore right shoulder for months and nobody has been able to fix it, send them this video. They have almost certainly been told it is their shoulder, and they have almost certainly been handed a treatment that does not address the real mechanism. You may give them the explanation that nobody bothered to give them. Your right shoulder is not betraying you. It has been carrying a message for an organ that has no other way to call for help. The day you start listening to that message instead of fighting it, your body finally has a chance to heal. Subscribe, hit like, and pass this along.